everyone! Welcome to the first episode of Let's Talk English, the podcast where we bring you real-life discussions to help you improve your English skills and understand life in the U.S. My name is Emily, and joining me today is my co-host. How are you doing, James?
Hey, Emily. I'm doing great. Excited for today's topic. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good too. The weather's great, and I'm super excited because today we're talking about a very important topic, renting an apartment in the United States.
What a perfect coincidence. I actually just helped my cousin find an apartment a couple of months ago, so today's topic is still fresh in my mind, I would say. And let me tell you, apartment hunting can be quite an adventure. There are so many things to consider, like location, rent, lease agreements, landlords. The list goes on.
That's so true. And that's exactly why we're talking about this today. Renting is something almost everyone has to go through, but for those who are new to the processes, especially people moving from other countries, it can feel overwhelming.
Absolutely. From understanding lease agreements to dealing with landlords, there's a lot to think about. And let's not forget about the cost. Renting in big cities like New York or San Francisco is ridiculously expensive. Let me tell you, I have friends who pay over $3,000 for a tiny one-bedroom in Manhattan. It's crazy, right?
Wow, that's insane. But don't worry, by the end of today's episode, you'll have a much better idea of how to rent an apartment the smart way. We'll cover everything from where to look, what to ask, and even how to negotiate. Plus, we'll go over some useful English phrases you'll need when talking to landlords or real estate agents, so stick around. All right, let's start from the beginning. When you decide to rent an apartment, what's the first thing you should do?
The very first thing? Set your budget. Trust me, you don't want to fall in love with a beautiful apartment only to realize later that you can't afford it. Most landlords expect your monthly income to be at least 3 times the rent. So if an apartment costs $2,000 per month, your income should be at least $6,000. Otherwise, landlords might reject your application or they'll ask for a cosigner.
Ah, I see. And aside from budget, what else should renters consider?
Location, for sure. Do you want to live near work or school? Do you need public transportation nearby? Are there grocery stores and restaurants around? These things make a big difference in your daily life. And let's not forget about safety. Some neighborhoods look nice during the day but feel sketchy at night. It's always a good idea to check crime rates online before signing a lease. I once almost rented an apartment that seemed perfect until I visited in the evening and saw people arguing loudly in the street. I changed my mind immediately.
That's a great example of why visiting in person is very important. Speaking of which, let's talk about how to actually find a rental. Where do people usually search?
There are a lot of websites like Zillow, Craigslist, Apartments.com, and Facebook Marketplace. These platforms let you filter by price, location, number of bedrooms, and even amenities like a gym or pet-friendly spaces. On the other hand, some people are going through local real estate agents. This is more common if you're looking for high-end apartments or if you're new to the city and need expert advice. But that can come with extra fees, which can be expensive. So for most people, searching online is still the best option. I'd also recommend asking friends as well. Sometimes people move out and need someone to take over their lease, which can save you a lot of trouble. And if you're a student, many universities have housing offices or bulletin boards where you can find listings specifically for students.
But I'm curious, why did you guys, you and your cousin, decide to rent instead of buy? What are the advantages of renting?
For us, it's all about flexibility. If you're unsure where you'll be in a few years, renting makes a lot of sense, especially for my cousin who's only been in America for a little over a year. So renting means you're not locked into a mortgage, so if you get a new job or want to move to another city, you can do it easily. On top of that, I know some young professionals who don't want to commit to buying a home while they're still figuring out their careers and personal lives. Renting gives them the freedom to move anywhere without the stress of selling a house.
Oh, I totally agree with your point. I was born in the US, but I feel like living here isn't always easy, even though there are plenty of job opportunities to grow your career. That's why we are very open if we need to move to another place. Plus, I've heard from friends that owning a house comes with maintenance costs too, right?
Exactly. And that's a huge advantage for renting. When you rent, the landlord is usually responsible for maintenance and repairs. If the plumbing breaks, the heater stops working, or the roof leaks, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars fixing it. That's a really major advantage, especially in older buildings where things tend to break down more often.
And another benefit is that renting sometimes includes amenities that would be expensive if you own a home. Some apartment complexes have gyms, swimming pools, security services, and even free parking, which saves a lot of money compared to paying for those separately.
Those are great benefits. But of course, every situation always has two sides. Let's talk about the downsides of renting.
One major downside is that you're not building equity. When you buy a home, you're investing in property that can increase in value over time. When you rent, your money goes to the landlord, and you don't gain anything financially in return except a place to live. And another problem is rising rent prices. In some places, landlords can raise the rent every year, sometimes by hundreds of dollars, depending on market conditions. If you buy a home with a fixed mortgage, your monthly payment stays the same, which provides more financial stability. And let's not forget about the security deposit. In some cities, you might have to pay 2 or even 3 months upfront rent. That's a big chunk of money to put down all at once. So, if your budget is tight, this could turn into a serious headache. Nobody wants that. And let's be real, money troubles tend to snowball. If I were a kid, I definitely wouldn't want my parents arguing all the time because of it, you know?
Yes, I totally agree. One more input. Getting that deposit back isn't always easy. Some landlords will try to deduct money for repairs or cleaning fees, even if you left the apartment in perfect condition. That's why taking photos before moving in and out are so important. And renting also comes with restrictions. Some leases don't allow pets, certain types of furniture, or even overnight guests. So if you're someone who loves decorating or customizing their space, renting can feel pretty limiting. Some leases even have noise restrictions, which can be a problem if you have friends over or if you work late and need to make calls. So while renting is a good option for flexibility, it does come with its own set of trade-offs.
But if renting is full of challenges, how can people make the process easier?
I believe one major challenge is credit checking. In the US, landlords often check your credit score before approving your rental application. If you have bad credit or no credit history, which is common for international students or newcomers, it can be really hard to get approved. And sometimes it's not even about credit, it's about income requirements. Many landlords want proof that you earn at least 3 times the rent each month. For someone just starting a job or living on a tight budget, this can be a big hurdle. In big cities like New York, San Francisco, or Los Angeles, rent is extremely high. A small apartment can easily cost over $2,000 a month. But in smaller cities or suburban areas, you might find a nice place for $800 to $1,500 per month.
But even if you do qualify financially, you still have to be on the lookout for rental scams. That's something my friends warned me about. Have you heard of them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are tons of scams out there, but one of the most common and classic tricks is scammers create fake listings on websites like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. They post amazing-looking apartments at incredibly low prices, and when people reach out to them, they ask for a security deposit up front before even allowing a visit. And guess what? As soon as they get the money, they disappear. The apartment never existed in the first place.
That's brutal. We'll get back to how to avoid those scams later. But let's say you find a legit apartment and pass the credit check, then you have to deal with the lease agreement, right?
Yep. And some leases are super strict. They might say things like, no guests staying over for more than 2 nights, no pets, even small ones, no painting or even hanging pictures on the walls. And let's not forget about hidden fees. Some landlords charge extra for parking, trash pickup, and even using the laundry room. So if you don't check carefully, your affordable apartment could become way more expensive than expected.
Oh man, that's rough. And speaking of money, one of my friends had a terrible experience with her security deposit. A security deposit is supposed to cover any damage you might cause while living, but some landlords refuse to return it, even if you leave the place spotless. They'll claim there's damage just to keep as much of the deposit as possible. And if you try to argue, they just stop responding to your calls. Okay, I can see we've listed a lot of challenges, but any tips to overcome them? Let me check my list. We mentioned credit checks earlier. What can you do if your credit score is low or you don't meet the income requirement?
For me, one of the best options is getting a cosigner. For those who don't know, a cosigner is someone, usually a family member or a close friend, who guarantees your rent. If you don't pay, they're legally responsible for covering it. This makes landlords feel more secure, so they're more likely to approve your application. If you don't have a cosigner, you can also offer to pay a higher security deposit. Some landlords will accept a larger deposit as proof that you're financially responsible. Another tip is to build your credit score before renting. If you don't have a credit history, you can get a secured credit card, make small purchases, and pay them off on time. Or you can ask your bank about a credit-building loan. Also, if you already pay for utilities or a phone bill, services like Experian Boost can add those payments to your credit history, which helps improve your score. Every little bit counts.
That's smart. Even 3 to 6 months of good credit history can make a big difference. What about rental scams? How can people protect themselves?
Rule number 1, never send money before seeing the apartment in person. If a landlord refuses to meet you or show the place, it's probably a scam. If you know how to use the internet, do a reverse image search on Google. Look at the results, and if the photos appear in multiple listings in different cities, it's definitely fake. Remember, if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. For example, every listing in New York shows apartments average for $2,500 a month, but one is going for just $900. Gotcha, something's not right.
All right, everyone, remember this rule as it is quite critical, especially in the early stages of searching for a house or apartment. Take your time to research and compare prices as much as possible. Not only does this help you find something affordable, but it also gives you a better understanding of the price range in your desired location. Now, before signing a lease, what should renters do?
You should read every single detail carefully. Be on the lookout for hidden fees, such as parking fees because some apartments charge extra for packing. Utility costs are water, electricity, and Wi-Fi included. Or pet fees. Even if the apartment is pet-friendly, you might have to pay monthly pet rent. Some apartments include utilities in the rent, while others don't. So always ask before signing. And if there's a lease term you're unhappy with, try negotiating. Some landlords are open to adjustments, especially if you show them you'd be a responsible and reliable tenant.
All right, the last challenge, security deposits. As far as I know, they're supposed to be refundable, right? How can renters make sure they get theirs back?
As mentioned earlier, here's a pro tip. Take photos of the entire apartment when you move in. If the landlord later claims you caused damage, you'll have solid proof that it was already there. And when it's time to move out, don't forget to check your lease. Most lease agreements require 30 to 60 days notice before moving out. Breaking the lease early could mean paying a penalty. Before leaving, clean the apartment and fix any minor damage. A spotless apartment increases your chances of getting your full deposit back. It's also a good idea to request a walkthrough inspection with the landlord. This way you can address any issues before they deduct from your deposit. If everything looks good, you should get your security deposit back without trouble. And one more important tip, always get everything in writing. If your landlord agrees to return your deposit, have them confirm it by email or text. That way you have proof if there's a dispute later. And if the landlord refuses to return your deposit unfairly, you can take legal action. But hopefully, it doesn't come to that. Another serious topic renters should be aware of is eviction. Landlords can't just evict tenants without a valid reason, and the terms should be clearly stated in the lease agreements. Common reasons for eviction include non-payment of rent for several months, violating lease terms such as having unauthorized pets or subletting without permission, or property damage beyond normal wear and tear. However, even if you're a perfect tenant, eviction can still happen if the landlord decides to sell the apartment or use it for personal reasons. In such cases, local laws often require landlords to provide proper notice, typically 30 to 90 days before you have to move out. If you ever receive an eviction notice, don't panic. Check your rights as a tenant, communicate with your landlord, and seek legal advice if needed. Staying informed can help you avoid surprises and make any necessary transition much smoother if you need to relocate.
That's a clear approach to make sure you get your security deposit back when you move out. Speaking of knowledge, we promised you some useful vocabulary at the end of this episode, so let's go over some key terms you might hear when renting. First, we have 1. Lease agreement. This is a legal contract between the landlord and the tenant. So I have an example. Before signing the lease agreement, make sure you understand all the rules. 2. Security deposit. This is a refundable payment to cover potential damages. You can say, my landlord asked for a security deposit of $1,500 before I could move in. Easy to use, right? 3. Utilities. This is a basic service like electricity, water, gas, and internet. The question for the landlord could be, does the rent include utilities or do I have to pay for them separately? 4. Eviction. This is the legal process of forcing a tenant to leave. For example, if you don't pay rent for several months, the landlord can file for eviction. And finally, credit score. This is a number that represents a person's financial trustworthiness in almost all countries in the world. Many landlords require a high credit score before approving a tenant.
You got the vocabulary. There are some useful phrases that you can use. 1. Is the rent negotiable? This is to ask if the landlord can lower the price. For example, the rent is a little high for my budget. Is the rent negotiable? 2. Are utilities included? Checking if the price covers extra costs like electricity and water. You can ask for the landlords. Before I sign the lease, I need to know. Are utilities included? 3. When is the move-in date? Move-in date is the day that you can start living in the apartment. So this question is about your first day at the lovely new apartment. I like this apartment. When's the move-in date? 4. What is the lease term? Asking how long the contract lasts. Like, I'm looking for a short-term rental. What is the lease term? 5. Can I have a roommate? Checking if the landlord allows more than one tenant. That's a fair question, right? I want to share the apartment with a friend. Can I have a roommate?
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Renting can be tricky, but with the tips we shared, hopefully you'll find the perfect place to call home.
And don't forget, always read your lease carefully, watch out for scams, and make sure your credit score is in good shape.
If you find this episode helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And tell us in the comments, what's the biggest challenge you faced when renting an apartment? Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time with another exciting topic.
See you next time in another topic.
See ya!